are known to us, but for those of you who are new to us, we are specialists in tools, technologies, and practices for modern software development, and we have been working with Microsoft for years, so we're pretty focused on their stack. Since about 2 years back, we also work with GitHub, and we feel that Microsoft, Azure DevOps, GitHub, and Azure are products that work perfectly together. We work mostly, or we have consultants and offices mostly in Scandinavia, but of course we work all over the world. Next slide, please, Jesper. The roadshows we have done so far this year is we have been talking about developer velocity. We have been talking about scaling agile using Azure DevOps, safe and scale, how to use GitHub Actions with security, and that was actually Rob from Expert who's in this meeting as well, who had that session, and also app modernization. All of our sessions are recorded and placed on YouTube, so I will post a link here in the chat when Jesper had got started. So Jesper, over to you.
Yes, all right, thank you. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jesper Fernström. I'm one of the Agile and DevOps specialists at Solidify. I also happen to be the CEO of Solidify Norway, where we are establishing an office. So just a quick message, if you are in Norway, I probably want to talk to you. Okay, we are going to talk about big room planning with GitHub Issues. And I borrowed this image from Scaled Agile Framework. It's their kind of program board, it's called, in that framework. And we're going to talk about big room planning with GitHub Issues. And I'd like to, before we dive into this, I'd like to address both of these things individually, so to speak. So I'd like to start out with the big room planning. What's the purpose of the big room planning? Or if you're doing safe, it's called PI planning. And it's actually a part of the PI planning. So usually what you call big room planning is like it says here, a joint plan for a number of teams. So, I mean, if we're just one team, I mean, we're probably just doing our normal agile routine, whatever that might be. But once there are multiple teams and we need to plan together, we want a kind of a joint plan for the important stuff, and we want to somehow visualize an estimate of when we will deliver what, so to speak. And then we want to identify cross-team dependencies. So going back to the slide before, it's kind of like, okay, a rough timeline based on iterations. The stuff we want to do mapped out over those iterations, the things we think will deliver in each iteration or sprint. And then the little red lines or red cards are illustrate dependencies. And dependencies will pose a risk to any endeavor, and like if it's a project or if it's a value stream, whatever. As soon as you have dependencies, and especially when you depend on someone else to do something to unlock whatever you need to do, that's a bit of a risk. So we need to identify those. So big room planning, joint plan, visualize the plan and when we intend to do different things, and identify the dependencies, know where you have your risks, where you're likely to run into delays or other stuff. Okay, and then GitHub Issues. So in GitHub, we use issues to plan and track work. We've had that for quite some while. Issues live in GitHub repos. This is kind of important. So they're always tied to a specific repo. And because of this, as a team, if you want to plan your work inside of GitHub, you should have at least one repo. Some teams have multiple repos, they work with multiple products, whatever, but you should have at least one repo where you have your issues live, so to speak. Projects in GitHub, they can live at different levels. So they're available both on the repo level and the organization level. I do believe they're also available on individual level. If you have your individual account, GitHub account, you can have your individual projects as well. And also, if you want to work with a project that brings in issues from multiple repos, you do that at the organization level. Now, all of this is kind of it's already in the product bin for ages, kind of. But what we're going to look at today is something called, projects beta, the new projects experience, and a little bit with the new issue experiences that is already live. And for the time being, the projects beta experience live only at the organization level, which is, well, where I want to be anyway. So that fits very nicely with this demo. Also, I give you, by the end of the presentation, I'll give you a link to where you can sign up for this project's beta experience, and also a link to where you can give some feedback once you try it out on your own. So, big room planning with GitHub Issues. What I'm aiming for is to do something similar to this. However, I mean, this is just one way of doing things. You can do these kind of big room planning things in many different ways. There are digital tools. You can do it physically with huge papers and a lot of Post-its and yarn strings and whatever. I'm going to do it in GitHub, and I'm going to do it with a slight twist. So I'm gonna rotate this board by about 90 degrees. So yeah, we'll see what that looks like. So for my demo, and I'll kind of just show you the concepts of how you can do this. And once again, this is what I'm going to show you is one way of doing it. There are probably more ways to do it if you want to. So what we have is three teams. We have one team, Initiative X. They have something big going on. There's stuff that they can do on themselves, but then there's other stuff that they need the help from others to do. So they're going to ask help from the teams Freya and Sleipnir to help out with different stuff. And each team has a single repo in this demo. So that's kind of the setup for this. So let's see. Let's leave PowerPoint and go into GitHub.
Yes, but could you increase the size slightly?
Yes. Let's increase the size a bit. Something like that, maybe.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Better. Okay. So once you have the project's beta available to you, what happens is that when you in your organization or in your in your organization, you'll see that actually the icon for projects has changed slightly. And if you go to projects, you'll see that you have your old classic projects, and then you have something called projects beta. And if you create a new project, you get to choose what kind of project you want to create. So I'm gonna just to show you how you create a project and the default view, and then we'll jump over to the Initiative X project. But I'm just gonna quickly show you what it looks like. So new project, and this is what it looks like out of the box. Just kind of brand new project, and this looks a lot like kind of like a spreadsheet, which it kind of is. I can edit a few things here, so I can change the title. And then I can start adding stuff in here, kind of like with the old projects. And remember the old projects, they kind of Kanban board style to it, and you could add notes. Here's more of a spreadsheet, and I can still add notes. So this is a note, and I'll add that one. So I get it here, and then another idea of something. I can go on like this. And then if I want to change this into an issue, there's actually an option to do that, to convert to an issue. I'm going to show you how to do that pretty soon. Also, if I want to, I can add issues from a repo if I want to, and I can kind of do this. This kind of default view, and then of course I can there are a few things I can change this to a board layout, kind of more like the classical projects. And this is where you see one of the interesting new things with the new project experience. So you get these to do in progress done. And if you notice this, when I was in the table view, there's something called status here, and this is something other than your classic issue state. So let's see if I do it like this. Let's put this in status to do, and I'll just open up one of these issues. So here's my nasty bug issue in the Freya's repo. And I can see here that it's part of actually 2 different projects, and I can see that it has a specific status in another status in another project. So status actually belongs to your projects, not to the actual issue. And you can still kind of you can still close the issue. And if I go back and refresh this view, it's still here in my kind of backlog, and I see the issue state here. But it says the status is something slightly different than what we're used to. So kind of just remember this. I should also mention that for the time being, at least, I have no idea if this will change. The Kanban view is actually tied to your statuses. So if I add a column here, that actually translates into me creating another status. So now status XXX is available to me. So it's kind of new project experience. And then I can do filters and grouping and all kinds of stuff, especially in the table view. So let us jump over to project initiative X. So this is the initiative X. This is a project on the organization level. We have a short kind of a backlog here, things that we need to do. This is kind of this is the same kind of default view with these issues, just like I showed you before. I can add, let's see here. I could add a note saying X7. I have 1 through 6 here, so let's just add 7 like that. It's a note right now, and then I want to convert. Actually, we've kind of discussed this a bit. We get a better understanding of what we need to do, and I'm actually going to turn this into a proper issue. So I'll just click convert to issue, and it's going to be on initiative X. And now I can see here that it's a proper issue that I can now click and edit more if I want to. Also, just like I showed you, I can switch to a board view. I haven't changed the statuses or anything, so it's all here. And also it's possible to move items to another repo. Actually, I should show you here. It's possible to add. I can add more fields to show here. Some are out of the box, kind of out of the box fields from GitHub. So labels, milestone, repo. I'm just gonna add repo here. And yeah, I need to let me just save changes and reload the page so I actually get the repos for all the other. So this is in beta. Just be aware that might be why I have to refresh sometimes. So anyway, you can see here, I have these different items for the initiative X. By including the repository field, I can see kind of where do these different issues live. And actually, let me show you. Here I've done some more. I've added some more custom fields. I've added owners and stuff. What I want to do is, I've said here that, well, X3 is owned by the team Sleipner, but it currently lives in the actual issue lives in Initiative X repository. I want it to live in the Sleipner repo. So what I can do is, and this is, as far as I know, this is nothing new in GitHub really, but I can go into my issue and say, well, transfer this issue and move it to the Sleipner repo, and it will be transferred. And if I refresh this view, you'll now see that X3 should switch to Sleipner. But also, if you were observant, you saw that it had a random label here. It's actually a label that said random, and it vanished. So if you transfer issues between teams or team repos, be aware that labels are repo specific. And that is also a reason for me why I add some custom fields within my project as fields in the project and not maybe as labels. Otherwise, a fairly common pattern practice when working with issues in GitHub is to have labels for all kinds of stuff. But if you want to move the issues around between teams, the labels will be kind of reset when you move the item. So, but while the custom fields won't be changed. Speaking of custom fields, you see here I have a number of custom fields: sprint, status. Actually, status is not custom. Sprint, owner, and I can add more. I have a few more. I have something called deadline. I have something called value, but I can also add a new field. So let me add something that I call priority. And I can, these are the different kind of fields I can choose to add. I can add a text field, number, date, or single select. I want to add a single select. And then, priority, well, we could say like 1, 2, 3. I can save this and it shows up here and I can start selecting, what priority should this have now? Okay, 1, 2, and yeah, you get the idea. But also, if I want to, I can do something more fun, maybe. Now, of course, depending on how you define your priorities. Yes, save it. We'll return to the board. Now I get these kind of nice emoji-based thingies, which some people like and some people don't. But still, it's kind of I like it. At least it's more fun doing it this way. Anyway, so as you can see, we have with this new project. With the project's beta, we now have the ability to add custom fields or custom fields to our issues. It's not per se on the actual issue, well, without knowing the actual workings of the code behind here, but like looking at an issue that is part of a project Spida project, I can see all these extra fields here. So this is kind of a nice extension of how you do, how you can work with issues in projects. So moving back to my backlog. So what I've done here is I have my backlog. I have my different items here. What I've done is, because we have multiple teams who will be working together to deliver something. So what I've done is I introduced this custom field sprint. This is kind of the target sprint. When do they think they will deliver these different items? Also, a custom field to indicate what team actually owns an item. Why do I want this? Wouldn't it be enough with just the repo? Well, it could be, but also, I mean, teams could have multiple repos. Maybe not everyone knows which team owns which repo, stuff like that. To me, it makes sense to kind of indicate what team owns a specific item. Also, while we're planning, items like X7 here might actually, live in the initiative X space until we come to a conclusion or an agreement of who will actually be delivering this. And then we might say, well, either the initiative will do the work themselves, or they're gonna use the help of one of the teams. And then we might want to move this thing. And then they might say, well, okay, we're gonna place this in whatever, plan it for whatever sprint we want. So, okay, this is nice and all, but this is just kind of your average backlog. If I and I can I've prepared some extra views here, so I kind of the same information, but in the Kanban board. Also, nice thing with the new project experience, you can have cards that show more than just the text of the items. So I have the labels, I have my custom fields here, and I can actually choose to include more. So let's say if I have maybe one of the items has a deadline or something, which just so happens to know that one of them do, I can choose to show that. Then I'll just save the change here. And of course I can, start moving things around. So, okay, we're going to do these things. We decided that we're going to do all of them. Let me just move them in here like this. So as usual, drag and drop, and once they all have a status, that column kind of disappears because it doesn't really make sense to show it anymore. Okay, so backlog, and you can see it's now been updated. They're all in the to-do state. Sweet. However, we were going to do big room planning and plan this kind of together. And if you remember the idea of, because each team could have basically, maybe they've just set their plan here, say, well, okay, we're going to do it in sprint one, this in sprint one, this is sprint two, and so on. But then we need to plan together. So, and then we want a kind of a common timeline. So what I've done is I created a view to use specifically for the upcoming sprints. So what I've done is that I've grouped this board based on the value of the sprint column. So here we have sprint 1, sprint 2, and then we'll have 3, 4, 5, etc. And then the items that still has not been put into a sprint or planned for a sprint, they're grouped together in the no sprint area at the bottom. And this is where we're getting closer to this kind of program board visualization, because you remember I said let's do it with a twist, and basically what I've done here is I've kind of turned that board 90 degrees. And now we can start having discussions, looking at this plan to see that, okay, so in sprint 1, we think we're going to deliver these 3, both. So Initiative X, Freya, and Sleipner, they'll be working here. In sprint 2, there's other stuff that we will do, and then so on. But also what we've done here, because I said, well, dependencies, that's kind of the what will ruin the day for you. So we need to keep track of dependencies, and we need some kind of agreed upon convention on how to indicate dependencies or visualize dependencies. So what these teams have done is that they kind of agreed upon that, well, if we have an item that is dependent on another team, we're going to add that team name as a label in red to indicate that we're dependent on this other team. So having said that, what I can see in this view is that my item X2 that the Freyas own, they are dependent on the Sleipner team for something to do this. So this is kind of how I see that, okay, there's a risk here with this item. Actually, how do I know? So how do I know, like, what are we dependent on? Is it X3 they depend on? That's something that's Sleipner, or is it something totally unrelated? Where's the dependency? Well, in this view, in my opinion, I don't necessarily need to know that. However, what I would expect is Team Freya to be aware of what they need. They should know that. And I want Team Sleipner to kind of acknowledge that, oh, someone is dependent upon us, that we do something. And then I would fully expect the two of these teams to talk to each other. Most likely they would open up the actual issue to see, okay, so what's this all about? What's going on in here? And this is where you can actually use also one of the nice new features in GitHub Issues, which is, well, maybe you know about these checkbox things, but also you can reference another item in here. So let me just go into edit mode for this one. So using the organization / repo hashtag and the issue number, you get something nice like this. So we can see, and here we can say, okay, so we're dependent on X6. So X6, of course, we can go open up that one and see if there's some more going on here. And I don't have any good description here, but you get the kind of idea. Also, we're now in the Sleipner's repo. They can see, when looking at this issue, they can see that, well, actually, this one is tracked in Freya's issue number 3. So this is also to kind of let us know that, well, someone else has an interest in us completing this item. Also, I'm just going to show you this. Is like really, I really like this feature with the GitHub and checkboxes and issues. Let me just close this issue. Normally, I mean, we wouldn't do it like this really, but so I closed the issue. Let me go back to the Freya's issue, and you'll see the checkbox. It's been automatically checked for me because this issue was closed. Love that. Anyway, so I would expect the teams to talk to each other, probably not just close one of the issues. They will talk to each other to discuss, how do we solve this? What do we need to do? So X2 is dependent on X6, which Sleipner has planned to deliver one sprint later. So this is not going to work. This is so now we need to discuss, okay, how do we fix this? How do we work around this? Maybe there are more things at play here. So let's see. I'll add some one of my custom fields is saying, okay, value, for instance. And I can see that, well, x2, not only does it have a deadline, which x6 does not, also it's a much higher value to someone than x6. So together, these teams will kind of decide on, well, Sleipnir will change their plan. So they're actually going to move, not like this. They're going to move the item x6 up here. And of course, just like normal, if you move something up your backlog, something else has to go down, and in this case, it's x3. And then, of course, I would expect them to talk to a product owner or whoever needs to be involved in this discussion as well, just to make sure that everyone is kind of on board in this thing. And this is, how you do big room planning. You map it out visually so you can see what's going on, when you plan to deliver what, and by whom, and etc. And then if you notice that, well, there are dependencies here that makes this kind of not work out, we need to change the plan. You talk to each other and you change the plan, which we just did. Also kind of nice when I do the drag and drop here, because in this view, I've grouped the items in my table based on the sprint field. That value is updated when I move this. So you see it's in X3 now says it's in sprint 2, X6 is in sprint 1. So, and this is, and then of course, we could see here, well, okay, X7 hasn't even been planned, and maybe we can do that, and well, maybe actually that's not going to happen until sprint 3, and then immediately it's been grouped under 3 here instead. Yeah, and I can continue adding items if I want and stuff. So this is kind of the idea of how to do. See if I can do this. Couple of teams planning together. Let's see, where do we have and have like the sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, etc. We can see who owns what, we can see dependencies, other important information, and we can have the necessary discussions that we need. Okay, so this is kind of a quick look at how you can do big room planning using issues and the project's beta experience, which as far as I understand it's the next, it's the evolution of the old project. It's kind of this is the future for how you do projects in GitHub.
Yes, but before you go on with the next step in your presentation about
Yes.
discussions, I have a question that I know some people might be interested of. If you
Yes.
compare this with Azure Boards and Jira and other tools, what would you say?
Yeah.
Where would you position this and comparing way of work?
So that's a good question. It's a as you should say, it depends, and also it might be a matter of taste, what you prefer. I like both in the sense that, well, in Azure Boards and working with work items, that's a more at least today, a more kind of richer experience in what you can, how many fields and stuff you can add and display and stuff like that. However, and of course there's, I mean, we have our own at scale extension to do something like this, but more in more aligned with this image inside of Azure DevOps. But not everyone likes that kind of approach. And what I like with GitHub and the experience here is at least for the time being, it's a little bit less, and sometimes less is more. What I've seen over the years is sometimes, if you have this program board and someone puts up this string of yarn, and they kind of think that, well, okay, that kind of solved it, and you kind of leave it there. This puts more emphasis on, you know, responsible teams actually talking to each other, and I think it's fosters a bit of a more mature agile behavior or when you're working at scale. But I think both of them work more or less equally well. And also, I mean, I'm super excited to see where GitHub is going with the new project experience, because it's still in beta, and I expect there to be some more nice features and tweaks coming to this over the coming months, or whatever their horizon is for when it goes public. I don't know, but I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, at least for me. Thank you, Jesper.
Right. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to show you, and then we can just move on to questions in general. And this is, you know, when you do this kind of planning, this is all kind of tied into issues. And of course, I mean, I could jump to, I mean, we could have initiative X. If I go to their repo, as usual, I can see the issues here. Same thing for Freya's and Sleipner team. I can see the issues just as always here. Previously, I'd say over the years, it's been fairly common for teams or projects. So, you know, if you want to discuss something, just post another issue into the issues. You have your bugs, and you have your features, your new features, and then you have, you know, questions and suggestions and all kinds of things going on that, at least me personally, I've always felt a bit like, I would prefer not to have these things as issues mixed up with everything else, and then just use labels to kind of differentiate between what's a bug and what's a question, or stuff like that. And kind of recently, GitHub launched something called Discussions. And actually, I'm going to jump over to the Sleipner team. I don't think I've enabled Discussions there yet. So
do you think, Jesper, it's a good idea to combine issues and discussions for a little bit different purposes?
Yes, it is. And I'll show you why. So I'm gonna, for the Sleipner team, let's say they want to have their issues kind of focused on the stuff that they need to develop, or the work that they're supposed to do. And then they want to do this kind of separation of, you know, if people have questions and they want to have some way of handling those. I'm just gonna go into my repo settings and enable discussions. Now when I move to the top here, you see now I have a menu item called discussions. So let's go there, and this is the kind of vanilla default view. And I get a couple of categories here. And if I want to, I can edit those. And there are different kinds of categories. I can choose to, let's say, I can let me just add a new category. I can give it a name, something. I can, you know, give it an icon, I don't know, whatever. And I can choose it's like, it's an announcements kind of category that has certainly, you know, maintainers and admins can post, but no one else can make a new post. You can comment and stuff, but you can do a questions answers thingy, or you can just have what is this, open-ended discussions. There's not, you don't expect there to be someone posting an answer. It's just discussion. And of course, I can add descriptions and stuff. And then I get something like this. And in the discussion, so I mean, I can go in there and, well, okay, so I'll just start a new discussion. Select the category and say, well, okay, let's say it's a question. And like, projects. that. Let's start the discussion. And then, of course, people can suggest answers, and there's the ability, and you can vote on items. You can react to them, or whatever you want. And once someone has answered with something, let's see. Answer, and then of course I can mark it as an answer as well. Going back to discussions, I'll start see my discussions building up here, and you can see that it's answered and stuff like that. Also, what I can do is if I have a discussion going on, I think, well, this was a really good discussion, and actually, we need, maybe it's someone ask a question, is it supposed to work like this? And you say, no, it's not. Actually, it's a bug, or this should be a new feature or something like that. There's an option to create an issue from your discussions. Down on your right-hand side, you'll find create issue from discussion. You can do that, and then you get an issue with the reference back to the discussion, and I can submit this. So now, I have an issue based on a discussion, and I can work from this. But I kind of separated the discussions from the issues. And actually, I thought that I could, by all means, I could do a kind of deeper demo of this, but also let me just move on here and copy a link. So just to kind of show you this in action, this is GitHub's own feedback repo. And I can go to discussions here. They've enabled discussions. They've actually disabled issues. Someone from GitHub might someday tell you why. Anyway, and here I can see, here they're gathering feedback by using the discussions feature, but they're not making it. They're not doing it as issues. They're using discussions instead. So you can see people are upvoting, and so like early access to GitHub beta. You can see that there's 122 people going on. You can go in there. You can follow this discussion. See, oh, here's the answer. And yeah, you can kind of follow this. Personally, I think this is a great idea to kind of separate issues from discussions, and use issues to focus on the work you need to do, and use discussions to focus on discussions. And of course, if I so specifically for like initiative X in my demo, they would probably like to enable discussions so that people, when they discuss things, they can have asynchronous discussions going on within the initiative, maybe with their stakeholders and stuff. And once they come to a conclusion in this discussion that we should do this or that, well, you create an issue out of that, and then maybe you even transfer that issue to whatever team will be responsible to do the work. So it kind of all really ties together nicely. Right. So if you want to use these the new project beta experience, you should go to the top link here. Let me see if I can copy it to the chat to give it to you. No, I can't. I'll just write it. So you can go there and sign up. Okay, you'll do that. Thank you. So you can go there and just sign up for this new experience. And then once you've done that and have it enabled, remember I said that you get an email or something saying that it is enabled, but also you will see in your projects in your organization view, you see this new icon in the menu for projects. Then you know that it's enabled. And then once you start using it, go and add some feedback in the. It's this is a very there's a lot of things happening here, and also if you encounter a bug like I did yesterday, I was unable to save my views yesterday. I just went here and someone tagged it as a bug. I guess behind the scenes somewhere someone created an issue in whatever repo handles these things, and today that bug was solved. So cool. Quick handling of things that get reported. Right. So this is all I had to show you. Just want to mention that next event that we'll do is about how we use code spaces in Solidify. I don't know. Do you want to say something about that, Magnus?
Yeah, I can. Well, we've recently started to use code spaces, and we want to show you how the use cases we have from code spaces using it for internal and external development as well. So I think it's going to be a good presentation.
So with that said, any questions about what I've shown you?
We had a couple of questions from Patrick. I tried to answer them. He asked when would this be available in GitHub Enterprise Server, and I took a look in the roadmap. I couldn't see any information about that, but there'll probably be information there when it's available. I also posted the link for the public roadmap.
Yep.
And he also asked, is there a way to show progress for several projects like a roadmap? And of course, you can't show progress of several projects, only several teams, and that you showed us.
Yeah. Exactly. So there's progress for several projects. No, I'm not. I don't know if it's exactly what you're looking for, Patrick, but so I mean the thing you get is with these on a specific issue. Of course, you can see what's going on, and if it's part of multiple projects, then that's something you can see. So I think the X6 issue had no, it was the X3 one. So let's see if I can find my way back to that one. So was it X3 that was part of multiple? Crap. No, it wasn't. Okay. Anyway, if you're part of multiple projects, you'll see them all listed on the right-hand side here, and of course you could see what status has in the different projects. But that's about it, I think.
Patrick also says it's a feature in Jira, so they seem to enjoy it there.
Yeah,
but it's not possible here at the moment, at least.
Okay. So, but like, if it's a feature that you would like to see in here, I mean, I would suggest go post it on the GitHub feedback repo. So who knows? Maybe you'll get it.
Okay, but then maybe we should wrap things up for the day. And thank you very much, Jesper, for giving us this good insight. And if you guys have any other questions, you can post the questions on LinkedIn or contact us directly or whatever suits you. Okay, thank you guys, and have a nice Friday.
So I'll hang around a little bit if someone wants to ask some questions once we stop recording. And
yeah, I stopped recording now.
Har du stängt av inspelningen?
Inspelningen avstängd, ja.
För här ser det ut som att den tickar på den.
Nej. Jag kanske gör det. Stoppa inspelningen.